Did you miss me? I'm back. Still got a little bit of that cold that I've been working through. I was able to go pick up my trophy for Player of the Year in my Red River Am Tour. It was a great accomplishment and overcame some challenges to get there. Today I want to talk to you about a stack collapse that almost happened a few times, actually. The call I got was that we've got a problem with our stack. Can you come out and take a look? So when I first got out to look at the situation, you'll see there in the picture, the stack was by itself. Let me get you over to the slides. There we go. The stack has two flues coming into it. So because of that, they had to have two, basically the ductwork, all that gas had to come in and hit a target wall. And the idea was that the precipitate would hit, the dust and the ash would hit that wall, and rather than get stuck on the side of the chimney that they would have to clean out later, it would just be on that wall and they could clean it out a lot easier. Well, they were doing routine inspections in this stack, and they discovered a problem. Let me give you a little bit better understanding of what the stack is too. Besides the target wall, it's really a stack within a stack. There's a brick line stack that's really able to withstand the heat of the exhaust gases. And then there's an interstitial space of about 3 feet, an air gap of 3 feet all the way around this chimney. And then there's a reinforced concrete chimney on the outside that's very strong and can withstand the wind load. So it's this combination idea that you can withstand the fire challenges with the brick and the environmental challenges with the concrete, but there's got to be an air gap, and if anything goes wrong, you got to be careful about what can happen. So as I said, they were looking in the base of the stack, and you kind of see elevated in there, the stack is the target wall. They saw bricks on the floor. Now the target wall was not at the floor level. The target wall was up 30 or 40 feet off the ground, sitting on an I-beam. So just imagine a stack of bricks sitting on an I-beam, and you look a little bit closer to the I-beam and you see it's cracked. Okay, so now you know that if that brick wall falls 40 feet, it's going to splatter, right? And just picture 40 feet of bricks splattering at the base of a brick chimney that doesn't have reinforced concrete until it's 3 feet out, 3 feet later, right? So the bottom of that brick is all exposed, and when it gets knocked out by this wall, the whole brick chimney is going to come down on the inside of the reinforced concrete chimney. When that happens, the whole steel reinforced concrete chimney is going to go, right? We don't know if it's going to fall on the plants or if it's going to fall towards the neighborhoods, but it's very likely that this thing could fall if we don't stabilize that wall. So we had to do something quickly. The options were to pour some shotcrete, basically really thin concrete down in there, or polyurethane foam. And it turned out that the foam was going to be much faster. So they basically used 55-gallon plastic barrels to take up some space, and additionally shot in 190,000 gallons of polyurethane foam, or 190,000 pounds of polyurethane foam. So the foam kind of did the job. It got up there and it stabilized the base of the chimney. We didn't have to worry about the bricks falling. We didn't have to worry about anything taking out the bottom of the concrete, because we filled that whole area all up on the outside, the interstitial space, on the inside where the floor was, all the way up to the bottom of that target wall. Okay, great. Now we can proceed to take that target wall down. Well, I get another call from the plant manager. Hey, when we get finished with all this, can we leave that foam in there? And I said, do you know anything about that foam? I think it's polyurethane foam. That's pretty flammable. And I did some research, and yeah, it self-ignites, at 600 or 700 degrees. Not the kind of thing you want to put in a chimney. Certainly something that if you left it in there and it did catch on fire, who would know, right? Black smoke starts coming out of the chimney. The first thing they look at is their combustion controls. They don't say, oh, we've got a fire in the base of the chimney. Nobody thinks that. They think we've got a smoke problem, it's the boiler. So the bottom of that chimney continues to burn and burn and burn while nobody pays any attention to it until it collapses. Okay, so I didn't think it was a very good idea to leave that there. The plant manager wanted me to come down to the site and talk to everybody and see how the job was going. He wanted me to basically understand, how safe it was. And he says, come on out and take a look. So I went to the plant and 190,000 pounds of foam. That is a lot, right? And when you're standing there looking at it, you kind of lose the fact that it's solid gasoline. The BTU content is enormous on this. So it was interesting just sticking my head through the door going into the area where they were demolishing that old wall. And I was the only white hat that was in there other than the foreman, and he sees me immediately. He comes over and asks me how I'm doing, wants to find out who I am, why I'm there. I told him the plant manager asked me to come down, take a look at how things were going, that I was a risk engineer. And I asked him, I said, have you ever done this before? He said, yeah. I said, well, tell me about it. He said, well, we used concrete before, and we didn't have to take it out. We just poured it in there, and that stabilized the stack, and that was it. And I said, have you ever used foam like this? He said, no. I said, do you know how combustible this foam is? He says, oh, yeah. I said, oh, yeah? Why? Oh, yeah. He said, it caught on fire. I said, tell me about your fire, because I'm very interested. Let's hear about the fire. And so the foreman starts to tell me what happened. And basically I'll show you a couple more slides, but part of this wall was stabilized. Originally, the original design was backing plates that just held the wall. So they're cutting the bolts off these backing plates, and one of these red hot bolts drops down into the floor, right? And when it goes down into that foam, it starts to burn. And they thought, well, let's get a fire extinguisher. They got a dry chem fire extinguisher and tried to squirt it down that hole that bolt, that red hot bolt was just melting its way down through. And then these flames came up. They said it was blue flames. And they said the more dry chemical they sprayed on the fire, the bigger the fire got, the worse it got. So they called the control room. And they said, hey, we have a small fire. Can we borrow a crane to lift an AFFF cart up to the side of the stack so that we can put a little foam on this foam? Nice pun, right? Well, the operators are like, wait a minute, you don't need a foam cart for a small fire. Let's call the fire department. And, when the fire department rolls into your plant, and, they're used to seeing house fires, car fires, kitchen fires. They're not used to seeing a stack fire, right? Maybe a chimney fire they've had in a house, or a fireplace chimney, something like that, but not a stack that is a few hundred feet tall. And the problem with this stack was that it was surrounded by scaffolding. And those firefighters were not going to get their ladder stuck in that scaffolding. That's their excuse, and that's what they said. They were not going to be able to help us, but they would go evacuate the neighborhoods. So now what does operations do? They said, okay, Mr. Contractor, if you think you can get it with a AFFF cart and a crane, have at it. So they lifted an AFFF cart up there. They brought the hoses in, and they started putting in so much AFFF. They got the fire out. But they now have basically challenged the ability of this brick liner to withstand the weight of all the water pushing up against the bottom of it. We thought it was stabilized, but now we've added all the weight of this AFFF water. So after some analysis, it turned out that it was going to be okay to continue to work. The big problem that they had with removing this stuff was how hard it was. You couldn't even dig in it. A shovel just couldn't break it, So they were looking at ways of cutting it and, hauling it out. And it was just a pain in the butt to do. So they decided to use some pressure washers. And they found out that, this is the nice picture of the foam, huh? The pressure washers are what made the difference. These hydrolasers made it possible to just wash all that polyurethane foam out of there, and the stack was stabilized, and the wall was replaced, the beam was fixed, and we didn't have a collapse. But we had some misunderstanding of the hazards. There was the plant manager thinking he could leave it there because it wasn't a big deal. There were the people that had never worked with it before that were dropping red hot bolts into this plastic, and they were just lucky that they didn't get taken over by fire. So, and then the ultimate, risk that we faced was collapsing this stack. It could have collapsed by negligence if no one had seen the bricks on the floor. It could have collapsed when we started putting in the polyurethane foam, because we could have expanded the base without realizing it. And as that polyurethane foam cured, if it had any growth in it, that could have caused damage. We had many steps along the way that could have caused this catastrophe. But one of the things that I really wanted to highlight was, this is for all my risk management buddies, and if you are a risk engineer long enough, hopefully you'll get to be a risk manager. For the risk management folks, remember that your property insurance policies have limits, and how much you can collect is based on what you buy when you sign that policy, when you agree to that coverage. And a lot of times those limits are based on what the worst you think could happen in your fleet. And what we had here was the potential for this stack to take out 2 units. And we only bought $500 million worth of insurance, which would have been plenty if one of those boilers had exploded. Not a big deal. But you drop a stack on 2 of the boilers, or a stack on both turbines, and now you're into way more than your $500 million limit. Where this gets tricky is that some directors and officers' liability insurance policies have exclusions for not buying enough insurance. So your directors and officers get liability protection in case they make a mistake. But one of the mistakes they don't get to make is not buying enough insurance, like property insurance, on a normal D&O policy. So we checked ours. Ours had been endorsed to add the coverage back in, but I'm just saying that if you've got potential stack issues, you've got MFLs that you're not aware about, because most of the MFLs are boiler explosions and under-turbine fires, and they're not thinking too much about stack collapse. So just be aware of that, and it's not a frequent event. There's only been a couple actual stack collapses, and they haven't been in the billions, but they also didn't hit the plant when they fell. They could cause fatalities. So, we don't want to have a stack collapse. With that, that is the end of this one. Hope you made it through, and looking forward to doing this again. Keep the comments coming. Love doing this.